today's a very special day for me because I have with me a friend of mine, a great guitarist, one of the top guitarists in the world, and a person that has been around for many years. And it's one of the few guitarists that can say that he created a style and a technique that everybody uses today. For me, Frank Gambale was the bridge between what I used to hear, which is heavy metal, and jazz. When I came to jazz, it was through Thelonious Monk. I couldn't understand it. When I listened to Frank, that was something I could understand, and that was my bridge to jazz pretty much. Then I got his technique books back then, before internet. So that meant living in Dominican Republic. That meant waiting for the books to come, getting somebody to bring it, whatever. Then we had my son, Liam, which probably a lot of you know. He got into Frank so much because we used to listen to concert with class all the time. And Liam at 1 was always asking to listen or to watch the concert on TV. When I met him in person for the first time was in 2005, I think it was, Frank. And it was in Chicago. That was the day after he got all of his guitars stolen, actually.
Oh, I remember that.
So that was a bad day for you. I remember that. But here we are with Mr. Frank Gambale today. And welcome, Frank. Thanks for being with me today, man.
Socrates, pleasure to be here. And yeah, look, Facebook Live is always fun. And, you know, in this, what I call house arrest with the COVID virus thing, you know, it's been great. I've been really enjoying the time at home and practicing and, you know, getting some work done that things done that I wouldn't have been able to do had I been on the road. It's a lot harder to do stuff when you're traveling, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been good.
Well,
how are you?
You know, it's pretty much the same. It's been, you know, it's tough to hear the news and see what's happening in the world. But at the same time, for my creative self, it's been great to be home and just practicing and writing music, you know, with the family. But yeah, it's been tough. Just reading the news, it's been tough. But in general, I feel good about what's happening personally.
Yeah. Well, I hope we get past all this pandemic stuff because, you know, I really look forward to getting back to playing live. That's something I miss terribly. And I don't see an end in sight, at least from the America side here. You know, things are going a bit worse than ever. So, but anyway, enough virus talk. I wonder if you would like to hear me play a little bit. Are you getting any questions coming through? Are you seeing any?
Not yet, but please go ahead and play some, and then we'll have it here. I'll have the Facebook open so I can see questions.
I got a fun little bluesy shuffle beat. I call it a soufflé, which is a famous French beat.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just a little fun jam track that I have, and I hope you like it, folks. Here we go. And there you have it, little jam track. This is what I've been doing in my time off. Practicing changes. I love playing changes. It's a real, a high art. In my mind, improvisation, and especially through challenging chord changes, is really high art. And it's not easy to achieve. It takes a lifetime to be able to be slippery through chord changes. And I think it's really chord changes that separates the men from the boys a little bit too. Playing changes. Any comments? I can't hear you, Socrates. I've lost you for some reason. Can't hear you.
I was muted. Well, I messed it up and it's going through my personal page instead of my music page. So I went there to tell people, go to my other page.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, hopefully
so,
they did that.
learning. So Frank, yeah, like you said, the changes, man, are the thing. And you navigate it so well. That's one of the things you have.
Well, it's taken a lot of work to achieve that, and it's joyful work. To me, being able to play on any chord is the ultimate place to be. And it's fun. It really is fun playing through changes, and so I spend a lot of time doing that. And I think it keeps my brain active. It keeps it really sharp. Keeps the synapses firing, and I think it's a tremendous mental exercise as well.
Yeah, one thing with your music and everything. I mean, I am so influenced by your music and your playing since I was a kid. I told you that before, and one of the things I enjoy is that precisely. I love jazz changes, but with the rock sound, with the power of rock in the jazz world. So that's something I got from you, I guess.
Well, fusion was around before I came along. It was maybe I was your contact point or the point where you discovered this kind of music. For me, the 70s was when I was growing up, and the late 60s. I caught the tail end of the 60s too. My brothers were older and they were listening to all kinds of stuff and turning me on to this music, all kinds of music. I was listening to all kinds of things like Yes was really big in the late 60s, and Cream and Hendrix, of course, and Crosby, Stills and Nash. I loved vocal harmony music too. So it was all going in. The Beatles, in their hipper stage towards the end where they got weird. That was really great. And then you know, it morphed into fusion where I think Hendrix was the spark.
Uh-huh.
Hendrix kind of blew the walls off, you know. He went, look at all this noise and volume and incredible fire that you can get from a guitar, you know, in a loud amplifier.
Yeah.
And a lot of jazz musicians had been a lot more timid up to that point. And I think that, you know, Jimmy was the spark for a lot of jazz guitar players to turn it up, plug it in, play loud, and take the jazz sensibility with the rock tone. And that's kind of what fusion was. And you know, Chick Corea and the Return to Forever, they were pivotal, one of the pivotal groups. You know, Jean-Luc Ponty was another one. You know, McLaughlin and Mahavishnu Orchestra back in the 70s and Weather Report, these guys were all the masters that really created the style. And some say Miles too.
Yeah, of course.
But from a compositional standpoint, you know, those others I mentioned, they were really writing some interesting and fresh and new music. My
You
first point of reference for fusion was an album called Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, Return to Forever. And, you know, that blew my head off. But it's funny, I was listening to Chick more than anyone else. I was really digging his solos and copying his solos because they were just mind-bending on that record, especially. And that was like 1973, something like that. Old shit now, but it's but great music. That inspired me. And you know, Steely Dan was also a big influence on me. I still love him to this day. You know, with all this pandemic crap going on, you know, I have been turning off news radio. It just makes me crazy, you know.
makes
So
sense.
I'm just listen to music. And, you know, when I listen to music, everything's okay. You know, it's a real heartwarming, a soothing part of life, if you ask me. The vibrations of music that you love. There's nothing like it. It's healing, if anything. So you know, I've been listening to a lot of old Steely Dan, and you know, just going through the Steely Dan catalog lately and transcribing some tunes again. And they're
Nice.
really brilliant changes. You know, I find them inspirational. Yeah, I still do. So
You know, Miles was, of course, the beginning of it, of the fusion thing. But I got through fusion through you and Chick Corea and that kind of music I loved when I was, you
yeah,
know, 14, 15.
yeah,
Um,
the Electric Band, was that
huh?
what you heard? Electric Band,
Yeah,
the Electric Band, or my music, or a combination?
it was a combination. Actually, I heard your music first. I heard
Mhm.
the first album I got was The Great Explorers.
All right.
Because, you know, coming from rock, it made sense for me.
Of course, yeah, that was an easy transition.
You know,
Well, that was
learning those songs when I was like, whatever, 15, 16, 18,
yeah,
was challenging because, you know, I didn't have the chops, like your sweep
yeah,
picking technique. I had to
hmm
learn that. It was like, okay, how do I learn that? Then I got your books. And that's how things evolved into whatever is happening now. So, Frank,
hopefully they helped.
they did help a lot, not only in the guitar part of it, but also for me musically, in everything music.
hmm
Uh, I told you I started with Dick Grove, and for me that was an easy transition too, because I started your books first. Then when I went to
Yeah,
him, it was easy to go from one place to another.
sure. Dick Grove, I completely was in sync with his way of thinking about harmony too. I love the idea of chord families and, you know, dividing up the scales into their relative kind of sounds,
Mhm.
and you know, and really studying each scale, the possibilities for each chord family, and that really gives you a good strong foundation, I think, you know, for playing changes or arranging. Like Dick Grove was a great arranger
Yep.
and musician.
And that's how I got to him. It was through the composition and arranging chords. It was not on
Yeah.
guitar. It was the composition part.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but you know, like I said, you've been in my life for a long time. Your music is part of the score of my life, let's say.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. That's very
So,
poetic.
so when I met you in person for the first time, it was
Yeah.
the day after you got all of your guitars stolen. Do you remember that?
How could I forget? It's the only time I've ever really been robbed. My house was pretty much cleaned out while I was on the road. But it was miraculous, really, because my niece was staying in my house at the time, and she had just gone out for a little bit. And it was actually Thanksgiving weekend. And when she came back, she must have interrupted the robbery because she found, pillowcases full of, they were emptying drawers into pillowcases. I mean,
My God.
we were in a hurry to get out. And they took tapestries and art off the walls and guitars and anything they could get their hands on. And so she must have interrupted them. So they didn't clean out the house completely, but they got like 17 or 20 guitars. It was a big part of my collection. But, they were clearly stupid because some of these guitars are one of a kind,
Yep.
like my double neck Yamaha, which was on the cover of the Raison d'etre record. I mean, it was impossible to sell. I don't know. You'd have to be really by the time I put the word out everywhere, hey, look out for these guitars. And I'm amazed and very happy about how the community and the stores and the music and guitar community come together really fast when there's a robbery,
Yeah.
because nobody wants that. I mean, rob a bank, don't rob a musician, for God's sakes. So, we all band together and, we're all immediately got to look out for these guitars and the serial numbers. And of course, I keep a pretty good catalog. I don't have that many guitars anymore, but, I try to keep track of the ones I have with serial numbers and everything. So if anything like that, oh, I didn't say the best part. I got everything back.
Yep. Yep.
Because I was on the road. My niece was still there looking after the house. And, the day before I got back, my niece's laptop had been stolen. And so the police caught a guy burglarizing, or whatever the word is, another house in the area. And they went back to his place and they found a garage full of stuff. And they found my niece's laptop, and she happened to, it was a brand new laptop, so she still had the serial number and everything, and it matched. And then they found all these guitars and everything else that matched the description too. So the day before I got back, the police recovered everything. So when I got off the road, I got off the plane, I got my car and I went straight to the police station and just gathered up all my stuff. So it was like it was never missing.
Yeah, I remember you told me that after the fact. You told me, yeah, they found my guitars. And man, that was scary. I remember. But and I remember you told me also that you hadn't slept because you came from Chick Corea's tour to Vital Information the next day.
Yeah. Oh, well, things like that happen. When I was younger, I used to do crazy stuff like that. I remember there was one time we did a very long 3-month tour. For me, 3 months is a long tour with the Electric Band in Europe. And we were, we're on a bus. It's a lot of traveling, a lot of miles. And this particular tour was really hard. I mean, I remember doing 27 shows straight without a day off. One night off, and the only reason we had the night off was because the bus couldn't make it, or the gear couldn't make it to the next destination. We were going from somewhere like Poland to the tip of Italy down near Sicily or something. It was a crazy distance. And then we did another 17 shows straight. And the guys, we were all dead tired after the tour. And the guys said, look, we're going home. We got a 2-week break before we have to be in Japan to play more dates in Japan. And I said, well, screw that. I'm not going home. I didn't need to go home at the time. And I thought, I'll just fill in with a couple of clinics and whatever and do some work over here in Europe. And I cut it so tight. The last thing I did was in Vienna. And I had something like a 36-hour journey to get to Nagoya to play with the electric band. And it was incredibly tight because, you know, I had like 10-hour layovers in Singapore and stuff like that. It took forever. And, you know, after 36 hours, I got to Nagoya, and I managed to get 1 hour of sleep before I had to play. So, needless to say, that was one of the stupidest things I've done. But, you know, you do it when you're young while you can. You know, nowadays I wouldn't do that. I like to get to a place or a country, have a day, and then play. You know,
Well, you know,
sense.
touring, I remember those days too when I was 25 or so. And we got to the place, to the country, whatever, at 2 p.m., played the show, left at 5 a.m., and then another
Yeah.
country. And at 25, you can do that. Now it's like, I need to be home.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a form of torture sometimes being on the road. Look, to me, the playing is the best part. You know, you're on stage for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you're hanging with the folks at the show and you know, signing autographs. And it's a tremendous, you know, camaraderie between the band and the audience. But then, you know, the rest of the time, the 21 and a half hours, you're on the road.
Yep.
You know, you live in hotels or airports and everything else. So, yeah, that's what I always tell my students. Really important to be a people person. You have to be able to get along with other people because most of the time while you're on the road, you're hanging out. You know, it's not always about just the playing part.
You know, that's something I always tell my students too. It's like, you know, you want to play with people you like
Hmm.
because most of the time you're going to be with those people.
Exactly. And you want to play with good players that you
Yep.
like, if you
Yep.
can. Yes. Yeah.
So, you have a lot of things going on. I know you had a tour to Europe that, of course, was postponed because of the COVID. Um,
Yeah. Thank you, virus.
yeah, I mean, I remember when I saw well, the beginning of it, and I saw that you can't. They postponed your tour, and everything was coming down. It was like, oh my god.
Actually, I dodged a bullet because, you know, I canceled the day before we were to leave. And, you know, my agent in Europe was really upset with me. He
Oh,
says, "You can't cancel. How dare you? It took us literally 6 months to prepare and coordinate a 6 week tour. You know, it's a lot of effort goes into making these tours happen. A lot of moving parts. You know, I lost thousands and thousands of dollars
wow.
on airline tickets, for example, you know, that I will never get back because the airlines, for example, they will only give you a refund, not a refund, but they'll reschedule your flight,
Hmm.
but they don't give you the flexibility of rescheduling when you want. They have to, before the end of the year, you can reschedule. Well, you know, even if they gave me a year, it wouldn't be enough. They take it from the time you purchase the ticket. If you purchase a ticket to travel, you don't purchase it the day you leave. You're always purchasing it at, you know, 4 weeks or 6 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But if they give you a free, you know, pass on on the time you purchased it, it's not. They're missing the 6 weeks. So anyway, all of it was write off. You know, it was like 8 grand in tickets that I lost, which was ouch,
Ouch.
baby. That hurt.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah, look, but it was still better than having gone over there with the entire band and we were stuck or weren't able to get back or, you know, we were exposed to the virus or whatever. But yeah, the whole tour has been postponed exactly a year to the next year. And we're hoping we can do it then, the same, pretty much the same tour. Everybody just said, okay, let's just
Nice.
next year it's almost exactly the same dates. It's hilarious.
Nice.